Hello friends, welcome back to Clear Speak Academy. In today's video we will explore a love story that will help you to improve your English listening and speaking skills. Let's start. Emma lived in a small town. The town was quiet, with little houses and friendly people. Everyone knew each other. Life was simple, but sometimes it felt lonely. Emma was 24 years old. She worked at a small bookstore. She loved books. They took her to different places, even though she never left her town. She dreamed of adventure, but she was afraid to leave her home. One evening she stood outside the store looking at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. She sighed. Maybe one day something exciting will happen, she whispered. She did not know that her life was about to change. The next morning Emma walked to work as usual. The air was fresh and the birds were singing. She smiled and greeted Mrs. Taylor, her neighbor. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Taylor said. "Did you hear? A young man moved into the old house near the park." Emma raised her eyebrows. "Really? I wonder who he is." "I don't know much," Mrs. Taylor said. "But he looks like a city boy." He chuckled. Emma nodded and continued walking. A new person in town was rare. She was curious. At the bookstore, she arranged books on the shelves. Suddenly, the bell rang and someone entered. She turned around and saw him. A tall man with dark hair and deep brown eyes stood at the door. He looked around, then walked toward her. "Excuse me," he said with a friendly smile. "Do you have any books about this town?" Emma blinked. "Oh, yes. Follow me." She led him to a small section. He picked up a book and flipped through the pages. "This place is nice," he said. "Quiet. Peaceful." Emma nodded. "Yes. It's small, but I like it." He smiled. "I'm Daniel, by the way. I just moved here." "I'm Emma," she said. "Nice to meet you, Emma." His smile was warm. Emma felt something strange in her heart. Was it excitement? Daniel became a regular visitor at the bookstore. He often came to buy books or just to talk. One afternoon he sat by the window reading. Emma was behind the counter watching him. He looked different from the other men in town. He had a quiet confidence. "Why did you move here?" she finally asked. He looked up and smiled. "I needed a change. The city was too fast for me." Emma was surprised. Most people want to leave a small town for the city. Daniel chuckled. "I guess I'm different." Emma liked talking to him. He listened carefully and spoke gently. He asked about her favorite books and her dreams. She found herself telling him things she never told anyone. As days passed, their friendship grew. They laughed together, shared stories, and enjoyed the simple moments. Emma felt happy. But she was also scared. She had never felt this way before. One evening, Daniel waited outside the bookstore. "Want to go for a walk?" he asked. Emma hesitated but then nodded. They walked to the park. The air was cool and the stars were bright. "It's beautiful," Daniel said, looking up. Emma smiled. "I love the night sky. It makes me feel small but safe." Daniel looked at her. "You're different from other people I know." Emma felt her cheeks grow warm. "Is that a good thing?" He nodded. "A very good thing." They walked in silence for a while. Then Daniel spoke again. "Emma, do you ever think about leaving this town?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of the unknown." Daniel nodded. "I understand. But sometimes change is good." Emma looked at him. Maybe he was right. Days turned into weeks. Emma and Daniel spent more time together. One afternoon, Daniel found her reading in the bookstore. He sat beside her. "Emma," he said softly. She looked up. "I'm glad I met you," he said. Her heart beat faster. "Me too." For the first time she felt something she never felt before. Something special. But was it love? She didn't know yet. Emma's life had changed. Before Daniel came, her days were predictable. She woke up, went to the bookstore, read books, and returned home. Now her routine was different. Daniel became a part of it. Every morning he stopped by the bookstore for coffee. He brought her pastries from the bakery. They talked, laughed, and shared stories. One day, as they sat by the window, Daniel asked, "Emma, do you believe in fate?" She smiled. "I'm not sure." "Why?" "Because I feel like I was meant to meet you." His voice was soft but certain. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked away, pretending to fix the books on the counter. Was she falling for him? The town festival was coming. It was the biggest event of the year. There were lights, music, and food. Everyone looked forward to it. "Are you going?" Daniel asked one afternoon. Emma hesitated. "I usually don't." "Come with me," he said. She looked at him. His eyes were warm, hopeful. "Okay," she whispered. On the festival night, Emma wore a simple blue dress. When she stepped outside, Daniel was waiting. He looked at her and smiled. "You look beautiful," he said. Emma felt shy. No one had said that to her before. They walked together, watching the bright lights and laughing at silly games. Daniel bought her cotton candy. They shared warm pretzels. At the center of the festival there was a dance floor. Couples twirled under the fairy lights. Daniel held out his hand. "Dance with me." Emma shook her head. "I don't know how." "I'll teach you," he said. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. He guided her gently, their steps slow and careful. She felt the warmth of his touch. For the first time she forgot about her fears. After the festival, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. But doubt crept into her mind. What if he didn't stay? He was from the city. Maybe he would leave one day. She didn't want to get hurt. The next morning she was quiet at work. Daniel noticed. "Emma, is something wrong?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm just tired." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. But Emma knew she was lying. She was scared. Scared of loving him. Over the next few days, Emma started avoiding Daniel. She talked less, smiled less, and kept busy with work. Daniel noticed. "Emma," he said one evening. "Are you avoiding me?" She hesitated. "No, I'm just thinking about things." He frowned. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," she whispered. "Then tell me what's wrong," he said. "I care about you, Emma." Her heart ached at his words. She wanted to believe them. But fear held her back. "I just need time," she said. Daniel looked hurt but nodded. "'Kay. I'll wait." Emma watched him walk away, and for the first time, she felt like she was losing something important. Days passed. Emma missed Daniel. She missed his voice, his laughter, his kindness. One evening she stood outside looking at the sunset. She thought about all the moments they shared. And she realized something. She loved him. Tears filled her eyes. She had pushed him away because she was afraid. But she didn't want to lose him. Without thinking, she ran. She ran past the houses, past the streets, until she reached his home. She knocked on the door, breathless. Daniel opened it, surprised. "Emma." She looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "I was scared," she said. "Scared of loving you. But now I know. I don't want to run anymore." Daniel's eyes softened. "Do you mean that?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." He smiled. Then, gently, he pulled her into a hug. "I've been waiting for you to say that," he whispered. Emma closed her eyes, feeling safe in his arms. For the first time she let love in. And it felt right. After Emma confessed her feelings, everything felt different. She and Daniel spent more time together. They walked through the town, talked about their dreams, and laughed over little things. For the first time in her life, Emma felt truly happy. One evening they sat on a bench near the bookstore. The sky was filled with soft colors from the setting sun. "I never thought I would find love here," Daniel said. Emma smiled. "And I never thought I would be brave enough to love." Daniel took her hand. "I'm glad we found each other." Emma squeezed his hand. "Me too." Days passed, and their love grew stronger. But deep inside, Emma still had a small fear. What if Daniel wanted to leave? What if he missed the city? One evening, as they sat outside her house, she asked, "Daniel, do you ever miss your old life?" He thought for a moment. "Sometimes." But I don't miss the loneliness. Emma looked at him. But what if you want to go back one day? Daniel turned to her. Emma, I didn't just come here for a new place. I came here to find something real. She hesitated. And did you find it? He smiled. Yes, I found you. Emma felt her fears slowly fade away. One afternoon, Daniel walked into the bookstore with a small box in his hands. Emma looked at him, confused. What's that? He smiled. Come with me. He took her to the park where they first talked about life and dreams. Then he turned to her, holding the box. Emma, I never knew what true happiness was until I met you. You changed my life. You made me believe in love. Emma's heart pounded. Daniel opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring. Will you marry me? He asked softly. Tears filled Emma's eyes. Yes, she whispered. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a warm hug. In that moment she knew. This love was forever. The town was filled with excitement when they heard the news. Everyone was happy for Emma and Daniel. Mrs. Taylor hugged Emma tightly. I knew he was special, she said. The bookstore became even more special to Emma. It was where she met Daniel, where their story began. On their wedding day, the sun shone brightly. The town gathered to celebrate. Emma wore a simple white dress, and Daniel looked at her as if she was the most beautiful thing in the world. As they stood together, hand in hand, Emma realized something. She had once feared love. She had once feared change. But now she knew. Love was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. And with Daniel by her side, she was ready for any adventure life would bring. Years later, Emma and Daniel still lived in the small town. They opened a new bookstore together, filled with books from all over the world. They traveled sometimes, but they always came home. 'Cause home was not just a place. Home was love. And their love was a story to remember. Hope you like it. If you like the story, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more amazing videos.